So hi everyone, once again we are here at Community Chats. My name is Sandra Arevalo and I'm the Director of Community Health and Wellness at Montefiore Nyack Hospital. And today we have a very interesting and fun topic because I love everything that has to do with food, of course. We're talking about foods for cancer prevention, as if cancer wasn't a hot topic always, and so is food. So definitely it's a great combination. And we know that the prevalence of cancer is one of the worst killers in our country and overall in the world. But if there is a way to prevent it, I definitely want to know how. And for that, we have our absolute greatest expert here and Jessica Shapiro. And I love her. She's not only an amazing dietitian, she's also a very good friend of mine. So I'm so excited today because I get to see her too. And Jessica, please tell us a little bit about you. What is it that you do?
Great. Thank you so much, Sandra. It's so nice to be here. So yes, I'm a registered dietitian and diabetes educator, and I currently work out of a brand new multi-specialty care center in Elmsford, New York at Montefiore Einstein Advanced Care. So I see all different types of people, but specialize in diabetes and weight management.
Thank you so much. And today she's specializing in cancer, of
Yes.
course, but most of all is how we can prevent cancer. So there are different ways how we can have cancer, right? And one of them is genetics, and unfortunately, I don't think that we can change that. Not yet, I have to say. But you know, as dietitians, if we can do something every day with what we eat, I definitely want to hear about it. So Jessica, can you talk about those risk factors and what can be modified on those risk factors to help us prevent cancer?
Sure. Should we pull up the slides just so we have some visuals going on?
That's a great idea. And by the way, while we do that, please let me tell you, ask all your questions. If you're attending this, is because you're interested in the topic. I know that. And you probably have some questions that you would like to ask. How is this? Can you see the screen?
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Let me see.
So,
better now?
well, yeah. I mean, I see the whole screen. I see your whole, I don't know if you want to put it for slideshow.
Let me see how I do that.
But while you're pulling that up, I'll definitely talk about the risk factors and what are modifiable risk factors. So as Sandra mentioned, there are certain factors that we cannot change. Those are non-modifiable, such as your genetics for now, but we can definitely be hopeful for the future. But your age, as you get older, your risk for cancer goes up. As your gender. So studies show that cancer tends to occur more in men. Your race and ethnicity, and African Americans and non-Hispanic whites are more likely to develop cancer. And I'm not going to go into the reasons why or maybe, but there are also factors that we can modifiable, that are modifiable. So those are the risks that we can influence with our lifestyle, such as smoking, being overweight, physical activity or inactivity, nutrition status, alcohol intake. And in particular, we know that smoking is not so healthy, but it's linked to several types of cancer. And it is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States, not just with cancer, but just in general. That is a very, very big one to modify. But, you know, it's interesting because even though all of these different factors are modifiable, the amount of modifiable may be different between each person. So we're all different. But the good news is that all the modifiable factors that we're talking about today not only influence cancer risk, but also happen to affect and decrease the risk for other chronic diseases, such as heart disease and type 2 diabetes. And also our lifestyle habits. If you've already had cancer, having healthy lifestyle habits can also influence your chances of having cancer again. So, you know, so this is going to be helpful for anybody, not just those who are worried about cancer.
Mhm. And Jessica, I know smoking is like a big factor as well. Like if you're a smoker, and a lot of people think, okay, yeah, if you smoke, you get lung cancer or throat cancer, but no, it can be a risk factor for pretty much every type of cancer, right?
Yeah.
And that's something easily how you say it, that you can modify it easily.
Modifiable, yeah.
You say easily, but it's not easy if you are a smoker. But besides smoking, what's the next easy modifiable? I don't even know how to say that.
Modifiable.
Modifiable, thank you. Modifiable, thank you. Factor after smoking.
Do you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
So after not smoking, being at a healthy weight is the most important thing that you can do to prevent cancer. In fact, there are 13 cancers associated with being overweight and obese. And I think it's slide 3 or 4 where you can actually see which cancers I'm talking about. Gaining weight to becoming overweight and obese can cause changes in the body that help lead to cancer. And what it appears to be is that with increasing BMI, or the more excess weight a person gains, and also the longer a person is overweight, there's higher risk. I thought this was quite interesting because we know that smoking is the #1 risk factor. So this was a large study with healthy never smokers. And this was about 1.5 million people. So we can take out that whole, area of smoking, and the cancer risk was significantly increased by 12% with a BMI that we consider overweight, and up to 70% in those with a BMI of obese, that's considered obese. So that shows that that wasn't related to smoking, but BMI ranges are based on the relationship between body weight and disease and death. And knowing your weight can be life-saving, but we all know, and especially as dietitians, that BMI may not be the perfect marker of health status. And there are many different ways to size up your shape. But based on the studies, and what we use in healthcare, that BMI is still a good measure to keep track of. It's interesting that BMI, I'm going to touch on BMI just a tiny bit, just because I don't want people to be stuck on that BMI, but there is variation due to bone mineral content, hydration state, and density of lean body mass. And especially in ethnic groups, there's actually, if you can actually check out online that there are some companies that have come up with some more accurate, so to speak, ethnic BMI, but they're not based on science quite yet.
Mm-hmm. And Jessica, before we continue, I got a note, but it looks like at least one person is still on the first slide.
Oh yes, I only see the first slide too.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
So let me stop sharing for a minute, and then let me try to do this again, because I especially like this slide. I think this says a lot. So what about now?
Yes. So those are the 13 cancers that are associated with overweight and obesity.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying BMI, weight, definitely something that we can modify. So let's talk about how we can modify BMI. And I don't know if maybe we need to get a little bit into BMI and what it is. Some people might know, some people might not know. So maybe you want to go back and explain BMI.
Yeah, I could definitely return to it. And BMI ranges are based on that relationship between the body weight and also disease and death. So knowing your number can be extremely life-saving, but it's not the be all end all. There are many other factors that we look at, lab values and other ways to measure our weight. But the studies do show that there is this relationship and an increased risk between gaining weight, being overweight, and the longer a person is at a higher BMI, there's that increased risk in cancer.
Excellent, thank you. So let's dive into diet a little bit, because obviously, when we start talking about losing weight, especially, we are always, the word diet comes into mind. And please tell me if you see a different screen now.
Now we have it. Now we have it good. So I thought it was actually very interesting to know that cancer typically takes 2 to 3 decades to develop. Of course, we know that there are cancers that are earlier in life, but there's not really one food or nutrient that you are eating or missing out on today, but rather your overall eating habits and behaviors over a time period. So dietary patterns is what we like to look at. And what that means are, if you take a look at cuisines across the globe, you look at the history of eating habits and behaviors, we are inspired by cultures that are more traditional in their way of eating. And we might have heard of the Mediterranean diet. It's sort of all over the news right now. But those are the cultures that surround the Mediterranean. It's considered the gold star, the gold status of a healthy diet. But actually, it's also the benefits of the Mediterranean diet are also implicated in other traditional diets. So from anywhere from Africa and Asia and Latin America, and also some other plant-based diets, plant-forward diets, such as vegan diet or vegetarian diet. All of these have very similar components. The dietary pattern overall of each of these types of diets reflect a healthy eating pattern. They're filled with fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and other plant foods. And the key term is plants. Because when research documents the health benefits from these different dietary patterns, which includes that lowering of cancer risk, it's the overall plant products that are really sticking out as the winners. In lab studies, there's many different individual nutrients and vitamins and fiber and phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are the natural plant chemicals that have shown a benefit. But all of these different individual components demonstrate some anti-cancer effects from the plant products. But we want to include a huge variety of these plants, because there's not just one that sticks out as the best. So we want to have a variety. We want to embrace the traditional patterns and even the lifestyles and behaviors of the traditional diets, including being active and having positive social connections. So it's not just about diet, it's about lifestyle as well.
So, and I'm inviting all of our attendees today to please also ask questions and let us know your thoughts and comments. So please use the Q&A and the chat. And while we start getting questions from our attendees, I'm looking at your slide, all these beautiful diets, and I don't know if at some point you want to explain like the difference between each one, but also you mentioned something, and I think you were making a lot of emphasis on that, and it's lifestyle. So, but lifestyle is not just the food that we eat, right? It could be how we manage stress. It could be exercise. It could be, culture and family and all of that. So, for example, exercise, like how much do we need to exercise in order to prevent cancer?
Well, if we're looking back at our traditional diets, including the Mediterranean diet, there is a huge emphasis on being active. And that's just part of the culture, because usually their lifestyle is active because of maybe the jobs that they're doing. And now what are we doing? We're sitting all day. So getting regular physical activity, so really walk more, sit less, is the underlying recommendation. But being active in any way, but every day, and more than what you normally do. So I have a lot of people who walk to the bus or walk to the train, and that's only part of it. That you need to go above and beyond and aim for 150 minutes a week. And for more protection, the recommendation is 45 to 60 minutes every day. And this doesn't all have to go at one time. It can be spread out throughout the day. And again, going back to all these chronic diseases, this is good to reduce the risk of all disease. And also, what I said in the very beginning, that being at a healthy weight is the most important factor. And exercise will support being at a healthy weight and quality of life on just so many levels. As you can see in the slides, being physically active, they have made a connection between reducing risk of very specifically breast, colon, and endometrial cancers, and improving survival after breast cancer. But I think if you think about as weight being one of the, being the number most important factor after not smoking, then physical activity is going to help with all the different cancer preventions as well.
Now, Jessica, I think a lot of people would join me in saying that it's very hard for some of us to get even 15 minutes a day for physical activity, right?
Oh, yeah.
Forget about 45 to 60, obviously. But what would be your recommendations to at least try to get to that goal? Like, do we really need to go to a gym to do this? Or are there different, like, for example, let's say on Saturdays when I'm cleaning the house and I'm like vacuuming and mopping and doing all of that, I'm like, okay, that's my exercise.
Yeah.
Does that really count?
That can count. I think so. I like to look at what are you doing during the day, right? And break it into chunks. So I actually just had a recent patient who needed to get activity. And how did we get the 40 minutes into her day? Well, she decided instead of just letting the dog go out into the yard, she was going to go for a walk with the dog as well in the morning and in the afternoon. Tacked on an extra 20 minutes each day, and it became part of her routine. So how can you look at what your routine is and how can you make more, even just an extra 5 minutes, you go into the bathroom, make that a key to take a walk up and down the stairs. I mean, it's how you can best implement it and integrate it into your day to make it part of your routine.
Now I'm gonna go back on the slides a little so that you can explain what flexitarian lactose.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So a flexitarian diet, I don't think it's an official term, or maybe it's basically somebody that will eat pretty much anything, but I focus on plant-based is what, with plants as a primary source. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian is a person who does not eat meat, does not eat poultry, but will, and not fish, but will consume milk and eggs. The Mediterranean diet, we talked about. The pescatarian diet is a person who will eat fish, but will not eat meat, eggs, or dairy. And a vegan diet does not eat any animal proteins at all.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to process. Okay. So we move forward. Are there, now that we're looking at the foods and the food pyramid and all of that, are there any foods specifically that we should avoid to avoid cancer?
So certain foods you should really avoid. So looking at, I love this slide because this is just a great visual to show you what are the most important foods in a healthy eating pattern. And then there are, I hate to tell people what you should not eat and really prefer focusing on what you should eat, like looking at the Mediterranean diet or other traditional diets as a guide. But there are, unfortunately, certain foods that really limit our health and should be limited or avoided as much as possible. So I'm going to specifically first mention red and processed meats. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit more, but our sugar sweetened beverages and sweets, we want to avoid or rarely eat. And actually, I'm going to talk just about processed foods because this is probably all of the foods that I'm mentioning kind of falls into the category of processed foods and ultra processed foods. And I mean, many foods overall have some amounts of processing. I mean, just cooking something, you're starting to process the food. So there is, and most foods are processed that you eat, but it's ultra processed or highly processed foods that we want to watch out for. And hallmarks of these types of foods are those that don't have much fiber, they have high amounts of added sugar, and even the foods that don't taste sweet, they have high amounts of sugar. High amounts of salt, they might not taste salty, but they're high amounts of salt and fat. And there's also tends to be a long ingredient list, and often there are tons of ingredients that we cannot pronounce. So why do they put all these ingredients in? Many of them are there for shelf stability, preserving the texture, mouthfeel, increasing palatability, making it taste good, making us crave it more. So if you think about what that means, all those foods and drinks on that right side, such as refined grains, white bread, white flour, white pasta, potato chips, pretzels, other snacks like that, sweetened breakfast cereal, sugary drinks, sodas, cookies, candy, cakes, those all fall under the highly processed and ultra processed foods.
Jessica, what about those ready-to-eat meals?
So again, they are going to be a little bit processed, and I think it depends. There's so many options these days, and I think we're all looking for convenience. So I don't want to vilify any food, especially when it comes to frozen foods, because some of them can be extremely helpful in saving time. Yes, we want to look at what's in the ingredients. Are there real food ingredients? How many ingredients are hard to pronounce? And how much sodium, how much fat is in it? But pretty much, I recommend if it's a meal and there are vegetables in it and it's a balanced meal and there's not too many ingredients that we don't know about, and the sodium level is under 500 is usually the guideline I give, we can incorporate some of these healthier frozen meals as part of the overall dietary pattern. See, there we're going with the pattern. It's not about one meal, it's not about one nutrient, it's not about one food, but that can absolutely fit, but there are definitely not wonderful options out there as well.
Okay, so let me translate that just to make sure that, you know, I believe in selective hearing. It's like we hear what we want to hear, right? So
Of course,
I know
absolutely.
what I'm gonna say is because I want to hear it, or it's what I'm understanding correctly. So for example, hot dogs, highly processed meats. If I eat 2 hot dogs a year, no problem. But if I eat hot dogs every day, problem.
That's a very good question. So what you're asking me is, should we stop eating processed meat because hot dogs are a processed meat? And my kids would be very upset if I told them they could not eat hot dogs. But there does seem to be a connection between red and processed meat and cancer risk. This is one of the strongest connections. And what they found is the heme iron. So there's different types of iron. We all need iron, but the heme iron is the iron that we get from animal products versus plant products. So that red color that you're seeing in the red meat, that's what the heme iron gives, that red color. And the preservatives that in processed meat, the nitrates might be a word that might sound familiar. Those are the parts of the foods that have the evidence that connect those foods to cancer risk. So the strongest evidence is between processed meat and risk of colon cancer. And just to define processed meat just a little bit more, in case you're wondering, is this considered processed meat? Any meat that's been smoked, cured, or salted, or has added preservatives. And so the names of these types of processed meat: ham, bacon, pastrami, salami, sausages, bratwurst, frankfurters, hot dogs. My mom says frankfurters, other people say hot dogs. So we want to keep these foods as special occasions. Avoid or just have them for special occasions. The recommendation is to consume less than 12 to 18 ounces of lean red meat and to avoid or save processed meat for rare occasions. So if you love your bacon in the morning, I'm not telling you you have to stay away from it completely, but if you're especially worried about colon cancer, specifically if it's in your family, you really would consider keeping it out of your diet as much as possible.
And thank you for mentioning bacon, because as soon as you said it, I was like, wait, what? We're gonna have a lot of people angry here. I know bacon is a favorite. And we have a comment. You can use organic supplements to be able to offer the necessary amounts of vegetables and fruits, such as peels. Like, for example, take organic supplements like peels instead of vegetables and fruits, or like complement.
So that's a great question. And the issue with supplements, there's a couple of issues, but the studies show that the chemicals that are the anti-cancer chemicals come from whole foods. They come from the phytonutrients that we can't even necessarily identify every little chemical that has anti-cancer properties. So you can't make the same claim from whole foods and carry it over to supplements. Whether or not that there is a benefit to getting certain nutrients from fruits and vegetables from supplements, that's a whole other story. But the general consensus and the studies support the whole food and not talking about supplements, even if they are the components of fruits and vegetables, like the vitamins and nutrients as well. So I know that there are a number of supplements out there that are like green powders and things like that. The studies for anti-cancer are not related to those. So I can't speak to that.
As they say, fresh is best, right?
Fresh is best. And really you cannot, and I think what's so amazing about the plant products and all the different antioxidants, flavonoids, and phytonutrients, phytochemicals, however you want to look at it, is there's so many of them. And that we cannot take them all out, because we cannot say there's one specific nutrient that makes the biggest impact. That they are not able to say that if you take out just this one nutrient, you're going to be saved. It's a combination.
Exactly, Jessica, and you bring up a good point, because here I am thinking, if you're taking these supplements, even if you're taking them daily, and they might have a lot of vitamins and minerals, you're taking the same every day, while with foods, you're supposed to be changing and eating a variety of foods. So the nutrients that you're eating end up in being vitamins and minerals and proteins and all of those, will be different every day and will provide what we need, as opposed to the supplements, correct?
Absolutely. And thinking about eating the rainbow, you might see that before. There's actually a reason that we recommend eating the rainbow. Each color of the rainbow imparts different nutrients that our body needs and can be cancer preventing. So we want to switch it up. We want to try different fruits and vegetables.
And this is a very interesting question here. Didn't the FDA approve all the highly processed ingredients that are going to the processed foods? So if this is all to be avoided, why have they been approved and deemed too safe to eat?
That is a wonderful question. And I will say that there are certain ingredients that have been approved in the USA and are not approved in other countries. Why that discrepancy? I couldn't answer that question. But there's a very big difference between being approved and safe to eat and being healthy for you.
Because there might be a lot of things that are approved, not necessarily being safe.
Unfortunately, approval is not based on being healthy.
Now, fiber. Now that we're talking about fruits and vegetables and supplements and all of that, fiber, I know fiber has some role to play in all of these. So what is fiber and how much is the recommended amount to eat for cancer prevention?
Absolutely. Fiber is that plant component that goes undigestible in the body, and is so many benefits to fiber, not just cancer prevention. And I think if we look at what fiber does to us, you can understand how it plays a role in cancer prevention. So a diet that's high in fiber, which comes from fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and seeds and nuts. So all of our plant products pretty much, or whole plant products, it helps with bulking up. It helps us with feeling full. It can also help with making you take in less calories, therefore helping to maintain a healthy weight, which is part of that increase in reducing your cancer risk by being at a healthy weight. So again, the studies come from whole foods and not supplements or juices. You can take fiber supplements, but that's not where we're talking about today. I think it's important to understand that the average American only consumes 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day. Why is that important? Because the recommendation is to aim for at least 30 grams to lower cancer risk. So I don't know about about everybody, but people that I've been interacting with lately, a lot of my patients, I don't even know if they're reaching 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day. So it's not necessarily easy for some people, but it can be done. It can be done. So if you look at foods, if you look on the left side of this chart, you can just see what it looks like to get that 30 grams in a day. You're just adding a little bit of fiber full foods at each meal. And this is important because you take in 10 grams of fiber and you can't quite make it to 30 grams, but for each 10 gram of increase in fiber, there is a decrease in colorectal cancer risk by 7%. So for the more fiber you take in, there's more of a decreased risk of cancer. So how do we determine which foods we should eat? And if it's a whole food, if it's a fruit, a vegetable, a whole grain, a nut, seed, bean, pretty much those are good choices. But if you have a label, which most of these foods that we want to eat don't have labels, so you're not going to be looking at that. But foods with at least 2.5 grams of fiber per serving are considered good sources. And foods with at least 5 grams or more per serving are considered excellent sources.
I'm wondering how much fiber is on a banana. Do you know? Is that like a pear?
How much fiber is in a banana? I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll check it up and I'll tell you later. I'm just thinking, okay, maybe I can eat a pear and a banana every day. I don't know. Okay, another question that we have here. What do you think of adding chia seeds, like chia pudding or flax seeds to smoothies?
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think that chia seeds and flax seeds are amazing additions to the diet. They have so many benefits. Chia seeds and flax seeds are high in unsaturated fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids. Those are essential. And then they have high in fiber. And actually, I have a number of patients who take in I think it's a tablespoon of flax seeds, and that helps with their digestive system. So absolutely, those are the types of supplements that are real food, and those count.
And we have another question. Can you talk about fiber supplements like Benefiber?
Yes.
I guess Colace.
Yes. Those can be wonderful for helping with bowel health and helping be more regular, but the studies are not relating the cancer risk reduction to the fiber supplements. It's really to the whole foods, because it's not just, again, going back to, it's not one aspect of the food. It's not just the fiber. It's the whole food. It's the all the components. So if you want to get the biggest bang for your buck, the best is to get the fiber, the full 30 grams of fiber with real food, not with the supplements.
Yeah. By the way, I looked up banana. It's the same as 2 medium carrots. So I'd rather eat a banana than
Yeah.
2 medium carrots.
That's where we have to select what what foods we want to eat, and not eat what somebody else tells you to eat.
Yeah. Now berries, I believe they are called superfoods, right?
Yes. I hate the term superfood because, I mean, what are they gonna save the day? But but berries are actually really awesome because they are very high in those phytochemicals. They're super high in antioxidants, and they have a lower glycemic index. So those who are worried about their blood sugars can feel good about consuming berries.
Great. So why don't we play some myth or fact questions here, Jessica, and you tell us.
Before I do that, I have a question, I think, just about the last. So it says, should we be concerned about the higher sugar content in fruits versus the lower sugar in vegetables?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question. So when it comes to cancer risk, because that's what we're focusing on today, the answer is no. You can eat your fruits and vegetables as long as you're not adding sugar to it. Then that is not the concern, because it's natural sugar. And then you have the fiber, which acts as a package and really bundles that sugar up. And so you're not getting any spikes in sugar. You should not be getting spikes in sugar. If you have diabetes, or if you are worried about your blood sugars, you can talk more about the different sugar contents of fruits or starchy vegetables. There may be something to it, and I would talk with your dietitian or your diabetes educator. But for cancer risk, we're just more worried about variety of plant products. We're not really looking at sugar content, but added sugar, definitely something we want to avoid as much as possible.
Well, thank you so much. And now we're going to go to our myth or fact. So soy foods, do they raise your risk for breast cancer?
Yeah, so soy foods, I remember learning and worried about, especially breast cancer, that there would really be an issue with taking in soy foods because it mimics the hormone, especially because some breast cancers are hormonal related. Well, it's actually a myth. Soy foods are perfectly safe for women and men and provide a large amount of fiber, which is helpful for our cancer reduction. And actually, studies show that replacing animal protein, so thinking about that red meat, with plant protein such as tofu or tempeh, which are soy related, and tempeh is fermented soy, can actually be beneficial. I do recommend staying away from processed soy, such as textured soy protein and some of those fake meats, which have a lot of that's I would say processed foods, highly processed foods, and also how many of these ingredients can we recognize? But if it's basically just tofu, tempeh, edamame, which are soybeans, those can absolutely be a part of your diet. There's no risk and can actually decrease your risk based on substituting them for an animal protein and also with the added fiber.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Jessica. This just reminded me of one time that I found a product in the supermarket. It was like, I think it was vegan chicken. And I was curious about it. And I said, well, this is probably tofu or something with some sort of flavoring. I bought it and it tasted just like chicken. And then when I looked at the ingredients list, I was like, all that it takes to make this taste like chicken, it was a disaster. So yeah, we have to be careful with that as well. So thank you for bringing it up. Okay, yeah. The next myth or fact Here, moderate intake of alcohol is healthy.
Yes, and there is this recommendation of moderate intake, 1 to 2 glasses a day, especially if we're going back to those dietary patterns, the healthy patterns of traditional Mediterranean lifestyle. They do incorporate some moderate alcohol, and there have been studies to show some benefit if you are a drinker for related to cardiovascular health. Unfortunately, this is actually a myth.
Oh,
Ongoing research has found that even less than 1 drink a day of any kind of alcohol increases the risk of several common cancers, including breast, head and neck, and esophageal cancer. Alcohol is actually the 3rd leading modifiable factor that increases cancer risk after cigarette smoking and excess body weight. There is not an established safe amount of alcohol that does not increase your risk of at least some cancers. So the less you drink, the lower your risk for cancer. And I definitely was a little upset about this ongoing research that's happening.
I thought you needed to have a bodyguard for the bacon, but now I think this might be the reason.
I was really upset about this, and I kept looking into it even more and more, and there really is ongoing research about it. There is a consistent link with increased cancer risk in alcohol, and it doesn't matter what type of alcohol. You know, we think about red wine containing the healthy flavonoids, right? Resveratrol.
The Mediterranean diet comes with red wine.
It's not that. It's actually the risk is coming from the alcohol, the ethanol itself. And among wine drinkers, the risk doesn't vary at all based on the type of alcohol.
Okay. We have a question after this sad news. When I went to my doctor for an annual visit, I was told my potassium was a little high. I recently had increased my intake of fruit, primarily bananas and oranges. Is this a possible cause? Should I be concerned and not eat bananas for a while?
So a couple things I would say. One, are you taking, and do not need to answer this now, but to consider, are you taking any medications that may have an impact on your potassium status? But also, yes, I have seen people who eat a lot of bananas and oranges and other fruits that are high in potassium, and some people do have a little bit of an elevated. So yeah, just cutting back a little bit and then getting them checked again, seeing if that makes a difference. But sometimes you might want to look a little bit more and investigate a little bit why that is the case, because it really shouldn't if you're healthy.
Okay, and another one. It's a comment actually. I'm living plant-based since January 14th, and I'm living my best life.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and plant-based does not mean that we can't eat animal products ever. Just want to put that out there. But we want to have a majority of our diet to be plant-focused. So good job.
And it's so many vegetables out there to enjoy. It's like, it's not only 1 or 2, it's really, really a lot. So we just need to explore more. Okay, this makes me sad. So let's go to the next one. Keto diet.
I'm gonna go quickly. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know we're coming closer to the end of time. I don't want to get into a large discussion about this, but I will say that right now it's a myth. And there's ongoing research, but here's why. Keto diet, first of all, is a very difficult diet. So even if there are touted benefits, it's very difficult to stay in ketosis long term, and therefore unsustainable. So that's number one. Number two, people think they're doing keto, but doing just a low carb diet, and then therefore not getting the cancer preventative benefits from all the plant foods. So right now it's a myth, and if that changes, we'll alter the slide later on. But right now, that's not, I recommend having a variety and not worrying about the amount of carbs.
Yes, Okay. So that's a myth. Dairy.
Yeah, another one that has been linked to increased risk in cancer. The overall evidence to date is really inconsistent and not very good. But keeping in mind, milk correlates, so in these studies, not causes cancer risk. So there's a connection for increased risk of prostate cancer with large amounts of dairy intake. But they don't know if it's the actual dairy or the calcium aspect that increases the risk. So I would recommend for someone who has at a high risk for prostate cancer may consider avoiding dairy and alternative calcium sources, and to consider taking alternative calcium sources. A recent study that came out, I think that this is probably actually, it's a very, very large study of Chinese adults with a relatively lower dairy consumption compared to our Western diet. And they did find that higher dairy intake was associated with higher risk of liver cancer, female breast cancer, and possibly lymphoma. Now, yes, China has a different level of dairy consumption. They also have different they also don't necessarily digest milk and dairy as well. So not sure if we can take that information and make it and consider it our reality as well. But the studies overall are inconsistent. So as a blanket statement, I wouldn't say that it's dairy. There are, some evidence to connect to prostate cancer. And so if you're at a high risk for prostate cancer, that would be the only population where I would say, hey, you know what, maybe you should avoid it or at least reduce it. But overall, there's no strong evidence.
Okay. See what else we have. And what is this, Jessica? The New American plate.
Yes, absolutely. So it's obvious we need to get more plants in our diet. I think we've said it a few times. So let's talk about how we can incorporate in the next 5 minutes that we have. How can we incorporate more plants into our diet? So there's something that as dietitians, we talk to our patients, the easiest way to think about an overall healthy dietary pattern, an overall healthy plate, is to have a balanced plate. And this is the new American plate, we'll call it. And it's put out by the American Institute of Cancer Research. And this is 2/3 have a variety of unprocessed plant foods like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. So you can see that on this plate. And then the remaining 1/3 of the plate can be filled with your animal foods, but focusing on poultry, fish, unprocessed lean meats, and dairy, if those foods are the foods that you eat. So a good, really easy, simple way and a simple visual that you can take with you to any meal and say, 2/3 of my plate full of plant products, make it a variety, make it colorful, stock up your refrigerator, your freezer, even your pantry with fruits and vegetables. Watching out for those that are loaded with extra sodium and also sugar.
And I guess cook a little bit more, right? Like if
absolutely. Cooking more, know what goes into your food, shop for color. I mean, the rainbow, eat the rainbow. Buy your usual foods, but step outside your comfort zone and try something new, such as kiwi or papaya or purple potatoes. Even if it's you normally have regular potato, try a sweet potato, try a red potato. They all confer different health benefits.
Is there any evidence for or against cancer risk with coffee?
So there is a I don't really remember what the answer is, but there may be, there's a lot of antioxidants in coffee, but so I'm sorry, I'm thinking about coffee when it comes to cardiovascular risk. So I don't know the answer for cancer risk. For cardiovascular risk is actually kind of neutral, depending on the type of coffee. But I don't have the answer for you for that. So I will have to get back.
Maybe we'll do a whole community chat on coffee.
Maybe there's a lot about it.
I know there is a lot about it. Okay. I'm looking here. It says recent studies find that coffee might lower the risk of several types of cancer, including head, neck, colorectal, breast, and liver.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because of the antioxidants. And I mean, coffee can be amazing, but if you have a risk for cardiovascular disease, you might want to be careful, apparently, with the drip coffee, which may actually increase risk of cardiovascular or increase cholesterol.
All about the amount of coffee too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it depends on your cardiovascular risk. But I think if a person has anywhere between 2 and 4 cups of coffee, it actually is fine.
Okay. We have 1 minute left. I definitely love talking about plants and foods and all of these. So any last thoughts, any last minute questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how are we going to be more plant-based other than going to the grocery store? Make it a meatless Monday, try a tofu Tuesday. What about a bean taco Thursday? Make it part of your routine. Again, same with the exercise. Well, how do you make it part of your routine? How can you always add extra vegetables? How can you add extra fruit in your day? The more you add, the better it is, because cancer is the #1 leading cause of death worldwide. About 1 in 3 people in the United States would be diagnosed with cancer during their lifetime. And if you go to the last slide, 40% of cancer cases are actually preventable. So that's 4 of every 10. And those can be prevented with our health-related changes that include being at a healthy weight, having a healthy diet with all those phytonutrients, phytochemicals, and your physical activity. So figure out how to get more plants, go to your dietitian, a registered dietitian or nutritionist, and work with her or him or they, and figure out how you can incorporate more into your diet and thrive on a plant-based diet.
Jessica, I love you. Thank you so much for all this information.
Absolutely.
The whole slides presentation, everything is beautiful. And if you didn't have enough about cancer today, in 2 weeks, March 16, is our next community chat, and it's going to be all on colon cancer, because it's March, colon cancer prevention month.
Yep.
So that's why we're emphasizing this topic. So come and learn more about how to prevent colon cancer specifically. And we're gonna have a GI doctor talking to us about it. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. Jessica, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our attendees. And please help us spread this information. I will send you the link shortly so that you can watch the information again and send it to your friends and family members that you care for. Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Eat plants.